Bo. Are you in Montana, Bo?
I am in Montana.
Awesome. I'm Matt. You're here with Jim and Matt, and you said you had a question about if God were proven. So how can we help?
Well, yeah, thanks for having me on. If you don't mind, I just want to give you a thank you, Matt. I'm a hospitalist physician, and I've taken care of a lot of patients in the hospital with COVID-19 over the past few months. And I just want to tell you, I really appreciate the posture that you've taken in regards to the pandemic. I had a colleague of mine who's a really bright, engaging person and also an atheist, recommended your show to me, and I started listening a few weeks ago. And I think one of the first shows I listened to was on the 20th, and you said that everybody should listen to the medical experts who are wearing about wearing a mask and social distancing and staying at home if you can. And you talked about how people don't have a right to infect other people, and how there are limits on our freedom in order to protect people. And I like my job, but I do not want to take care of any more patients with COVID than necessary, and I sure don't want to see more suffering or dying from this. So I really appreciate you playing a part in that.
Well, thanks very much, Bo. Yeah, we've taken it serious from the beginning. We shut the building down in March and started moving things remote, and it's worked out. And thank you for the job that you do amongst the many people who are first responders and caregivers, making sure that because my family, I haven't interacted with them. They're in another state, but my dad got it, my mom got it, my brother, sister-in-law, et cetera. And so every one of you who are out there helping the people who are contracting this, of which there are now millions, and unfortunately over 400,000 deaths related to it. So thanks a lot, Bo. Let's work together on that. Let's see if we can work together on this issue and solve it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, okay, so here's my question. Last week, you said something like, you said, I don't understand people who don't see the value of truth. And I think the week before, you were talking about how important truth was to an atheist and just people in general. And this was your episode on the 10th with Mendiza Thomas. Mm-hmm. And I was surprised, and all that made sense to me, but I was surprised when, I guess it was the same episode on the 10th, you were asked a hypothetical question, you and Mendiza, and it was like, if the Bible was true and Christianity was true and Jesus was raised from the dead, would you become a Jesus follower? And it surprised me to hear both of you say, no, we wouldn't, and you went on to explain why. So, and I'm not trying to have like some sort of gotcha moment or something like that. I know you have very well thought out opinions on things, but those did not add up to me, how truth could be so important, yet you could answer the hypothetical, if such and such was true, I would still reject it. So I wanted to understand what your thought process was.
That's the confusion, Bo. I'm not saying I wouldn't believe it. I'm saying I wouldn't be a worshiper. I can believe there's a king and not willingly be a subject. I can believe that there's a gangster thug in the neighborhood who's who's threatening everybody, and I can stand up against that. So I could believe that there is, in fact, a God, provided there's evidence for it. I could even, in fact, believe that perhaps Jesus is divine if there were evidence for it. But that's independent of whether or not I would worship and be in service to someone who hides and threatens and is grossly immoral.
Yeah. So, okay. So you're saying even if you knew that like Jesus was the Son of God, you would not be interested in following him.
Not without some, well, first of all, I don't think anything is deserving of worship. And I think anything that would demand or expect worship is already disqualified from being worthy of worship, that this is something that could not be demanded or expected. But when it comes to someone like Jesus or God or whatever, I don't have, despite being raised as a Christian, the same baggage that assumes that by default God is good. God would have a lot of explaining to do before it would be worthy of anything like reverence or respect or following. Just like if somebody shows up today and says, I'm your new leader, well, I believe they exist, but they're not my new leader until I accept them. And for someone like a God that has been winning the world's longest game of hide and seek, and the only information I know about them is what that God's followers have said, I wouldn't, if the Bible is true and accurate, I could not respect a being like God that has inequalities between men and women, between Hebrews and Gentiles, between who can own property, everything down to enslaving people, of making thoughts crime, of not judging people according to their actions, but about whether or not they're willing to genuflect or show reverence or praise. No God that is good and decent should need praise.
Okay, well, thanks for answering my question.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bo. I don't know where you. I'm gonna let Bo go because we got a lot of callers. I appreciate it, Bo. Have a good day, and thanks for doing what you do.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I took over that because he was responding to something I said. I don't know if Jim's thoughts on that may be different from mine.
No, not at all. I completely agree. Just because he has, no matter what kind of God you define him as, until he is worthy of something more than the basic respect you'd give someone, a normal human being. But if you want anything more than that, you need to earn it. And he kind of fails in that. He is not a good person. He is not a nice person. He is whiny and is far too prone to resort to violence. So,
yeah, I think probably, and I wish I'd have said it this way. In hindsight, so for those who aren't aware of how this show happens, I say things, and then for weeks afterwards, I play them back in my head to see if there was something I could have said better. And usually it's right after I hang up. And right after I hung up, I realized that Bo's big thing was, hey, I thought you cared about what was true. And if it was true there was a God, why wouldn't you worship it? And what I should have said, because it's also true that everything I know of that God makes it unworthy of worship, which is kind of what I said in the long way. But
yeah,
at least
that'd be a real good short way to say it.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the Short Way Show.